then they feel ownership, and it's like you wait. So then there's also conflicts with reality because they're like it's disrespect for them. And they're like, yeah, like, right? And then also.
You want me to go ahead and start?
Sure.
Uh-oh.
You might have to disappear.
All right.
Oh, good. Oh, yeah, that looks really nice.
Did some karaoke last night. I'm feeling really good about that decision right now. Everything working okay? Everyone can hear me? Thank you. I need feedback. So thank you for coming to our session, Get In Where You Fit In, Augmented Reality for Museums Large and Small. I'm Sarah Wambold. I'm the Director of Digital Media at Clyfford Still Museum. And today we're going to go through 2 case studies, one from my very small institution, the Clyfford Still Museum, and one from a very large institution, the Detroit Institute of Art. And the software developer, GuidiGO, is here to give a little more information about the technology and to demo some stuff and allow you guys to have fun and play a little bit. So and we're going to be doing that back to you, but
Yeah, probably.
David will provide that information this time. So we're going to get right in so that you guys will have time to play and ask questions at the end. My portion of the talk is augmented reality context, placing stills paintings in dialogue with works by other artists. Scary face cat. If you know anything about Clyfford Still or the Clyfford Still Museum, this is a picture of the museum. Still was a major American painter who became famous as part of the abstract expressionist movement. Abstract expressionism was the first art historical movement of worldwide significance that started in the United States. He died in 1980 with over 95% of everything he ever made locked up in his estate. It's the largest intact body of work of any major artist from any century. He gave his entire collection to a city. He wrote in his will he would give it to a city that would open a museum to be custodians of the collection and his legacy. And the museum opened in 2011 to do that. It took a long time for his widow to decide which city would get it, and Denver was very lucky to have won that bid. This is a picture of Mr. Still. This is an excerpt from his one-page will. Again, if you know anything about Still, he was highly selective about where his art would be shown and who would be given the opportunity to collect it. He believed that an artist's work was best seen and understood without the distraction of the work of other artists. In his will, he said that he would donate the entire collection to an American city that would agree to maintain permanent quarters exclusively for these works of art, meaning that we cannot show any work by other artists in our galleries. And for an institution whose mission is to place Still's name back in the art historical canon, this poses a bit of a curatorial challenge. So in the fall of last year, we had a show that was called Still in Art, and it was meant to place Still in the context of art history, showing who might have influenced him and who may have been influenced by him. Of course, Still said that he was influenced by no one. So he probably wouldn't be terribly happy with the decision that we made to hang virtual works of art next to physical works of art by Clyfford Still. So in this photo illustration, there's a picture of Puff's painting on the, what is that, right? Your left? And a Clyfford Still artwork on the right. We thought a lot about this exhibition planning and how we would pull this off. I'm actually anti-native app. I'm very proud of the fact that I've never built a native museum app before. Perfect timing, Matt, because I believe that was a conversation we had many, many years ago. I think they're problematic for a number of reasons. We don't need to get into it. You probably know what all those hangups are. But for this application, we did a native application on Lenovo devices that we handed out at the visitor services desk for the show. And that solved a few of the problems that I have with native applications in terms of their accessibility and their low pickup rate. For this project, we partnered with Google, who provide half of the devices and visual mapping for free. We partnered with a media company called Riot Media, who provided the other half of the cache of devices that we had. We had 40 devices in all. And then we worked with GuidiGO to develop the application. For us, this was a pretty much interfaceless app, and that was a priority for me. There was no wayfinding, no interpretation. It was purpose-built to show objects that are physically not in the galleries. If you've been, how many of you have been to the Clyfford Still Museum? Good, that's pretty good. Since you're in Denver, you should go. Matt, I didn't see your hand. It's a small institution. You're probably not going to lose your way. There was no reason you needed to have wayfinding as a part of it. What was important to us in building this application was to be able to show the detail of the work, so get in very close to the paintings, and to show the scale of the work. There was only one work in the whole show, Rapture of Medusa, that we couldn't show at 100%. Our walls are literally not big enough to hold that painting, virtual or otherwise. So this is a picture of me holding the application. You can see how detailed you could get in that Van Gogh painting. It's a Barnett Newman there. And you can see Clyfford Still's big blue painting in the background. And then in addition to the paintings, we also hid a ghost of Clyfford Still in the museum. That's actually my daughter putting her arm around Clyfford Still as he's walking across the bridge. So real quickly, the tricky bits of this. This was a special exhibition for us, and we needed Google to come and map the entire space. That was a challenge because there was a gap of time between when we had to open the exhibition and when the augmented reality piece was available for people. So we had to solve what the experience was like when there was no augmented reality. Movable objects in the space, benches, people, what affects the VPS, I still don't know. Hopefully David can explain it to me for the 1000th time, and maybe this time I'll get it. The biggest challenge was the exhibition layout, and this was something I knew going into the project would be a problem, and unfortunately got overruled by the curator. So I'm going off mic here. You come up the stairs of the Clyfford Still Museum here. This is Gallery 1. There's a virtual object here, and then you don't encounter a virtual object again until you're in Gallery 5. This was a problem because people would use the application, it would localize, it would serve the first asset perfectly. They'd put the device down for 20 minutes as they go through the other galleries. The application would fall asleep, and then it would have trouble relocalizing itself. I think if we had had at least one object in every gallery for a consistent experience and the ability to really build people's skills with it and kind of onboard them in a gradual way, that would have been an improvement. We also had just a limited number of devices, so we had to sort of solve the physical experience when we couldn't have all the devices out. Fortunately for us, this was mostly a successful project, I think. Mostly because the younger daughter of Clyfford Still was really unhappy with it. But it was a huge press success for us. It was, we had about a 30% pickup rate with the devices, which we thought was pretty good. We didn't do a formal evaluation of this, but anecdotally, we observed that the attendance in the galleries tended to skew younger and a bit more diverse than our general museum-going audience. Over to you, Richard.
All right.
Hi everyone, thanks for coming. I know some of you had a long night last night. My name is Richard Scott. I'm the Director of IT at the Detroit Institute of Arts. So a little bit about the DIA is in comparison to the Clyfford Still, it's huge. About 650,000 some odd square feet of gallery space, a large encyclopedic museum. We wanted to provide a permanent digital offering that covered key experiences across the entire building. Additionally, since wayfinding in such a large museum is a perennial problem, we were hoping to solve that as well. So we call our AR experience Lumen, and it's, as I said, a permanent installation. We've launched 2 prototypes so far, one on the first floor and one on the second floor. The full launch with stops on all floors, including the 3rd floor, is going to happen in April of next year. The map you see here is a screenshot of the Lumen app on the first floor. The blue dot is where I'm standing, and you can see the cone. That's the direction that I'm looking. The gray icons on the map are points of interest. So those are navigable through wayfinding. They're like stairs, restrooms, elevators, that type of thing. The beige pinpoints are the actual augmented reality experiences across the first floor. And they represent the 8 experience on the first floor. So a couple of, I'm going to highlight a couple of experiences. This is one of the favorite stops on the first floor. Here we're trying to show visitors what's inside, right? So we have a mummy sarcophagus, and what this experience does is basically turn the device into a kind of an X-ray device, right? So you can see inside the sarcophagus a skeleton of a human. There's actually a human in there. People sometimes don't even think about that. The screen capture, then also the screen capture on the right is showing the learn more features. So there's kind of two pieces to every one of these stops. The first, the A that you see here is the actual augmented reality experience itself, and then there's a learn more where we provide hotspots on the objects to give visitors more information that we otherwise couldn't present to them. So here's one of the hotspots showing some of the conservation efforts for the sarcophagus itself. Another stop on the first floor. This is using technology to show visitors how it works. So on the left are the actual Gogh objects themselves, and on the right is the actual AR experience. Many times visitors might walk by these objects thinking that perhaps maybe they're a toilet. But in actuality, they're an ingenious water purification device. So what we're showing on the right here is basically like a basket that has filtration material in it. The water flows through the filtration material and drips into the Gogh, creating fresh water to drink, right? And in this experience, you can hear the dripping water and see the ripples in the water in the Gogh itself. So this is a map of the second floor. These are the 6 experiences that we have there. So one of the stops here that I wanted to highlight was one of the Rivera Court stops. And here we wanted to show the visitors how it was, right? So basically the visitor walks through a portal into Rivera Court and can see the space, how the space looked before Diego Rivera painted the murals. And this is a little bit more immersive. I don't know whether the terminology is right. I call it mixed reality because this is truly a virtual representation of the entire Rivera Court area prior to the paintings, to the murals being painted. And I should mention too, in this experience, we actually have a fountain that used to be there, and and this uses 3D audio, so when you're walking around, you know, if you turn to the left and the fountain's to your right, you can hear the fountain to your right. If you walk closer to the fountain, the sound of the fountain gets louder. It's kind of a neat experience. Second stop, another stop that I want to highlight on the second floor. So here again in the Riviera Court area. This is a game. So the visitor is asked to find the stamping press in the Riviera murals. You give them a little hint right here, and you can kind of see it over there on the right-hand side. Once they find it, the circle turns completely blue, and you know they get a little message that they were successful. And then this statue on the right of Quatlique, did I say that right, Andrea?
Quatlique, first.
See, there are, all right, thank you. Spins up, and it's absolutely stunning. The realism is amazing. It has hot spots on it as well to provide additional information to the visitor about the inspiration that this statue was to Diego Rivera. So, wayfinding. The application provides two methods of wayfinding. In this example, a visitor can use the location on the map. You can see here, there's just a blue line that shows you where you're going. That happens, I just select the elevator, this image. You can actually just follow the path to get to the elevator. In this case, if you choose to, you can tap on the upper right-hand, the image on the upper right-hand corner, and it becomes full screen, and you can follow just blue dot wayfinding to wherever you want to go. And this is an example of that. In this case, I selected stop 10. This is a full screen image of the screen on the Lumen device. You can see the blue dots leading you to stop 10 in this case. So some interesting learnings. So the overall satisfaction is very high. People are learning something new and they're having fun doing it. There's the room for improvement was ease of use, and we're addressing that prior to the launch in April. Several changes that GuidiGO is going to help us make in the application to make it a bit easier for folks to use. And then some notable findings here. So we expected older visitors to be disinterested, but the average age that checked out Lumen was 51, with a significant portion of the population in the 65 plus range.
Yes.
Yeah. Which was great. And we also thought that the screen use might distract people from the objects themselves, but the findings didn't bear that out. People would engage with the experience, and then you could watch people put the device aside to look closer at the objects themselves, which is exactly what we want them to do. Let's see, I think that's it for me. So I'm going to bring up David Lerman from GuidiGO. He'll talk a little bit about what an AR project looks like, and kind of lead us into a hands-on demo.
Good morning, everyone. So we started building AR experiences 2 years ago now. Actually, it was with Matt at MCN, I think so. It was in March 2016. And since then, we have produced more than 50 AR experiences in Europe, the US, and Asia. And so we have learned a lot. We have done a lot with the DIN, with Clyfford Still, with a lot of our clients. And so today I'm going to share not everything we learned, but 5 major differences between an AR 3D project and a 2D mobile or web project. So first, storyboarding. So you all do storyboarding in a way or another, in mock-ups, wireframes, but when you deal with AR 3D, you have to do it in a much more detailed way. Of course, it has to integrate UX, user experience, user interface, but also the user position. Because in AR, the visitor will move in a 360-degree space, with a 6 degree of freedom movement. So they can move everywhere, and at some point can maybe turn their back to the actual AR experience. So it all has to be taken into account, as well as occlusion management, where sometimes you can have a physical object between the visitor and the digital object itself. So here is an example of a project we have finished for the Utah Natural History Museum, where we are building an excavation site before it was excavated. So you can see a cornfield, and visitor can dig trenches, discover object, collect object, and learn about the work of the archaeologists. And you have 63 screens to detail all the experience. So sometimes it takes a long time, but we want to make sure that we are all aligned with the client before doing 3D production. Because when you do 3D assets, it's like creating a sculpture. If you, at the end of the sculpture, you want to change the shape of the nose, you have to redo the sculpture, basically. So it's the same thing in 3D. That's why storyboarding is a key part of it. So talking about 3D assets, it's a lot of different skill sets. Modeling, texturing. Sometimes the texture takes more time to do than the model itself, because this is what makes the object looks real. Rigging is basically put articulation to be able to animate the model. And finally, scene composition. So here, another example that you will be able to play with is an altarpiece that we did for the DIA. So in the gallery, I think there is 2 paintings from this altarpiece, and the visitor don't see how this was fitting in the actual object. So the DIA asked us to reproduce the altarpiece with 14 paintings, and based on the documents and the research of the curators, we were able to build this in 3D, so you can see that on the right, and to match the exact painting with the exact location on the altarpiece. So now when you walk into the gallery at the DIA, you can see the 2 small paintings, but you can also see the altarpiece and have an idea of the original work of art. Third point is the scene creation. So on the altarpiece, there is one object, the major object, but just one. But sometimes we have to deal with several objects, and we have to create a whole scene with interaction between the asset and the visitors, and implementing physics, shadow that makes things a little bit more complex. So here is an example of a project of an animated diorama. So you can see on the left, on the back of the screen, the actual diorama. So it's about a deer, and the idea here is to show how unbalanced is the ecosystem with too much deer. So what we have done here is when the AR experience starts, deer jump out of the diorama with flowers everywhere. And so you have some deers, and the visitor can play with different scenarios from no deer to a lot of deer to see how the ecosystem changes and how suddenly bugs come because flowers are here. And because of the bugs, birds can eat the bugs, so the whole ecosystem changes depending on the number of deer. And so it's a much richer scene than other type of experience. We have a tree, we have lights, you can see how we have to match the light with the light of the museum, so the shadows look real. So it's all about scene composition. So we are between architecture and movie production here. And finally, when the scene is done, and this is a key part of the art, we have to anchor the scene in the real space, and to make it persistent, because the deer or the altarpiece has to be exactly at a specific location, a specific position. So for that, we have created a tool that we use in all our projects, the Clyfford Still tool, which is basically, we call it a crane internally, because it's literally a crane. It's to lift up objects, turn them in every direction, move them right and left, and anchor them to allow to anchor the object in the actual world. So you have all those circles. You can play with it if we have still some time on the demo today. And yeah, you can put, so that's typically to put the mummy in the sarcophagus, you need that kind of thing. So it's not by tapping on the floor that the mummy by magic will fit into the sarcophagus. And last point, it's about how do you guide the user with hints, messages during the AR experience. Because once again, you don't want the user to face in the wrong direction while everything is happening in their back. So here are 3 examples. On the left, it's at the Morgan Library in New York, and we guide the user. So it's a little bit weird because we guide them in 2 different directions, but actually it's because you have hotspot on the left and on the right. So you can choose either to go left or right to find the hotspot. In the middle, it's no UI application that Sarah wanted. So the only thing that we added is a message to manage expectation about the visitor. So they know that they don't need to look for 10 paintings, but only 4 or 3 in this case. And the third case on the right is at the DIA. When we launched each target the first time, we saw that the visitor didn't move. They didn't think that they could move inside the model. So we added this message, invite them to move. And we added another message now at the end to stop them moving, because otherwise they will go into the restaurant and they will hit a wall. So you have to get all those messages depending on the user interaction. So I think this is it for me, and it's time for demo or questions.
A couple questions. Richard, the mummy, the skeleton that you did, was that the actual skeleton, or was that a representation of that skeleton? It looks
No,
like
those were actually 360 stitched together images of x-rays that we've done of the sarcophagus itself. So it's very much real. And in fact, when you use the device to look over the face of the sarcophagus, you can see fractures in the skull, and we don't know if that would cause a death or not, or if that happened after the fact, but it's very detailed.
I have a really small comment. By the way, my name is Andrea. I'm until this one. I work with Rich and Project Leader this one. And what is really interesting is that a real use of augmented reality is to explore your conservation work, and this is a great way to do it.
The second question is to David and all of you actually. Have you done projects with augmented reality outside?
So not yet, because the technology was not ready. But now we are working on some project outdoor. Mainly because before we were relying on depth sensor that we're using infrared technology, and now with AR Kit and AR Core, it's just surface detection, so you can anchor object outdoor.
With good, I mean, they don't move around.
No, they don't move around is if you have enough visual cues all around. If you rely on trees or grass, or if you position something in the parking, it won't work well. But if you position it outside the hotel, it will work pretty well.
Because the hotel is static.
Because the hotel is basically its work like human eye. If you pass through the hotel 2 times, you will catch visual cues, the door, some signs, and it will be the colors.
This position of the sun doesn't change that?
It depends. I would say. Really. You have to do some tests. If the human eye is capable of recognizing it, it will be okay.
Yes, but by what method did you gain your insight? Is there a survey at the end, or?
By what method did you gain insights on your evaluation?
Oh, we have an evaluation team that collected all of that information. So there are various different methods that they use. There's surveys, both short and long, then actual personal observations. So we had A member of our evaluation team actually down in the gallery and observing folks, trying not to look like they're stalking. But so it came from various different methods. And what I presented here was really from the evaluation results from the first floor experience, the first prototype. We just got the evaluation results from the second floor prototype. I didn't have them in time to share them in this presentation, but we had very much the same thing from the second floor.
Hi, I have a couple of practical questions for all of you about scale and the practicalities of this. Was this a paid experience, and what was the volume of tablets that you had available to people, and what was the breakage? And
So I'll go first and I'll let you answer. So at the DIA for both prototype 1 and 2, we've had 40 devices available. Actually, right now for prototype 2, I think we only have 20 that are sitting in the report. Yeah. But we have a total of 40. And there has been no breakage at all. It's a free experience. The only thing that we ask is for people to provide some type of an ID, driver's license, passport, and we hand them a device for free. So there's no cost.
If I might, one small comment there is that, and it's very purposeful, the minute making was a really strategic part of this project, and we thought that it would be, on our case, a little bit unfair to expect somebody with a $600 phone to use our application.
sorry, could you repeat the last bit?
To not expect a person to have a $600 phone in order to be able to download all that kind of stuff. So
Sure.
it saves a lot of time that way.
So you can't use your regular phone?
No.
And you mentioned you've done like 50 of these recorded experiences. What was the largest in terms of scale of numbers?
Let me think. You mean in terms of size of the model?
No, in terms of the deployment and
Deployment.
the space.
Deployment. So I would say it's in terms of number of device, it's DIA and Clyfford Still was last 2-3 months exhibition. And in terms of users, it was in Paris, a Grand Palais exhibition, Palmyra, where there were 3 tethered devices around the table, which is another way of using AR is to a tethered device, tethered to a rail or whatever, and 6,000 people used during 1 month. It was a 1 month exhibition, really crowded exhibition. They used AR around to experience how an arch was reconstructed after ISIS.
All right. No more questions. We can get on. Oh, go ahead.
There's one quick question. How do you guys balance from an interaction design perspective the social cues, especially the wayfinding, so people don't run into one another, like on the tablet? Like, do you find that's a problem?
It has not been a problem. Yeah, so obviously there were some folks that were quite worried about that, but the fact of the matter is, even when you're walking with the device, couldn't see it very well, but both Sarah's case and mine, the device is on a handle, and it's about that size, so you can clearly see everything around you when you're walking, right? So and it uses the camera on the device, right? So like in that little square up in the right-hand corner, or if you make that full screen, you can see people walking in front of you. So we haven't had any problems with people walking into each other or into walls or anything like that. The bigger concern was potentially people backing up into something. So we have to be very careful about where we put the pin drops. So, the pin drop kind of dictates where the visitor will be when they start the experience. And starting that at the right location so they're ideally not going to hit anything was an important part of, designing the experience.
So is the wayfinding then just based on that specific experience rather than wayfinding using as a whole? Is that correct?
It will wayfind you to any one of those pin drops is the actual AR experience. It'll also wayfind you to any of the other points of interest that I mentioned. So like if you wanted to go to the stairs, you wanted to go to the restroom, it'll wayfind you to those locations as well. But it always shows you where, even if you're not using the wayfinding, you're just using the map, that blue dot with the direction you're facing is always visible. So we've found on the second floor that, you know, the stops are pretty localized around the Rivera Court area, but we found through the analytics that's available through the devices for the experience itself, you can see people hang on to the device and go wandering over into like the contemporary gallery. You know, there's nothing over there, but they're apparently using it just so that they can see the way around the museum.
I just want to say, there's lots probably over there, it's just not part of the AR experience.
There's a ton over there. I'm just saying there's no AR experiences over there.
Just want to be
No,
clear.
nothing to draw them there from the tapping on the map perspective. They're using it just to be able to get around the galleries.
Can you guys talk a little bit more about user behavior with the devices? I know you said that you didn't experience any problems, but it will be interesting to see if you find that people abandon them, like just the act of holding it constantly.
Yeah, go ahead.
Can you hear me? So just to hit some bullet points, we also had 40 devices. We had no breakage. We didn't have any stealing. We didn't have any physical harm in the galleries from people bumping into each other. We didn't have any paintings bumped as a result of the AR experience. As far as user behavior, I would say in our experience, I would say it was a bit of a distraction, actually. But I don't mean that it's a distraction. It's the first time that you could see in our museum anybody else's work beside Clyfford Still. So those paintings did get a lot of attention, and I think that was probably a very good thing. It was a little bit of a game, you know, even though there was no interface to it at all. People were like kind of looking for the where the paintings were, and you know, they were literally walking through the galleries with the device up and sort of like scanning it around. And we put a ghost of Clyfford Still in it, which was sort of like a fun little nod to the game. So just in terms of behavior, I would say that the Clyfford Stills probably got fewer eyeballs on them than they would have if there had been nothing else up there. And I think that's okay.
As far as the DI is concerned, we have had some reports of you know, the devices getting heavy over time as people carry them around. So, you know, we're hoping that we can alleviate that with the next, when we have the full launch in April, we're going to be buying a whole new set of devices, and we're hoping that the devices we purchase then will be lighter than the Lenovo devices are that we are using now. You know, I don't know, Andrea, if you have anything else that you want to add to that, but as far as the behavior goes with the devices, we see some abandonment because there's some frustration from some people who find it more difficult to use, but most of those cases happen because some people don't go through the playroom activity, which is a training activity that we have to help people understand how to even experience AR, right? And some people just decide, oh, I don't need to do that, and they try to do it on their own, and in some cases they get frustrated. I don't know if there's anything else.
Yeah, I think what is really important, a couple of the huge takeaways, is that research was absolutely key to understand visitors' behavior. I mean, we were starting with something completely unknown that is still in the work. So I'd suggest that as a confirmation, it's good to make a balance of kind of easier and more complex experiences, and also limit your overall time of experience. I mean, some people use it for a lot longer than others. So it goes anywhere from 20 to 40, even more. So we're gonna have 3 floors, and we're limited. We wanna keep the experience under a certain amount of time. We don't want to substitute the physical experience of the museum. And I'd say that in general, there's been a lot of transformative moments. People are engaging with the piece of art in ways that they've never engaged. We have donors that have been going to the DIA for decades, and it's the first time that they invest things that, you know, words around or just the limitations of physicality just does not allow to understand. So the benefits beyond outweigh the interest in wrestling with this emerging technology. It's very natural that we're finding out new things every day.
If I can add something on your point, I think the weight of the mobile phone or tablets will depend on the experience itself. I mean, if it's an amazing experience even if it lasts 2 hours, you will forget about the device because you are so into it. So those constraints can be compensated by the quality of the experience.
Was there any other infrastructure that you had to put around this in terms of network, or is it all local on the device?
No, nothing else. At the moment that the device localizes the first time, you need to be connected to Wi-Fi, but after that, it doesn't need Wi-Fi, it doesn't need Bluetooth, it doesn't need any other infrastructure at all. All right, you want to get on to the hands-on demo? Okay, we're going to do it in the back of the room. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, cool. All right, thanks, Victor.
Hope you guys are listening, but I have to go. I'm meeting with my colleagues. I'll catch you up.
So, we just had our call.
Yeah, if you, we're gonna be at the exhibit hall, right?
Oh, really? I know. Yeah. I know.
So like you can, well, replace
And if you want to bring this demo at home, you can download the application from here.
walk away, and your device doesn't. So it persists. Right? Once it plays, and you can put some instructions up here if you want to download. If anyone wants to download and install it, that's what you're playing. And all of the device, all of the objects are available next week.
Yeah. Oh, but you went through it.
Yeah. I am.
But it was very nice to meet you.
But yeah,
Yes, I do. Thank you so much, Richard, for herding the cats, as it were.
Oh, well,
thank you so much.
Yeah, nice to meet you.
it was your original idea, Sarah, so
Well,
great thought.
good, thank you.
I think this turned out exactly.
It was perfect. Yeah, it was perfect. Oh, I'm sorry. No, it was me again. I gotta go to my next
it's fun.
All right, you have fun,
Yeah.
and, you know, keep in touch.
I
My plane leaves at 2:41 sometime.
Although, shoot, it's supposed to snow, so you're not delayed or anything. You have to show the weather. Yeah, you can. You have to.
I can look at it as much as it wants, it's not gonna change.
It's funny, wasn't it? I mean, my parents live in Connecticut. They got a lot of snow. You change the rain, so things awesome, you know.
I don't know, I looked, saw just like, just things, so just snow
Here, there, whatever's left. I'm hoping it somehow melts immediately for you. You don't like land and like step like 6 inches of slush. I don't remember. I mean, yeah, I grew up in Connecticut. I don't remember this much snow. Yeah, and I had to go back to these fires. I've seen a lot of fires come in years. That's one. I've never seen something else. I mean, these are. Yeah, and when I left LA, air quality was just like seeing the sun was orange. So coming here was great. I could breathe, even though it was at 5,000 feet. You can breathe a little bit less. All right, well, good rest of the conference. Have a safe flight home. Yes, thank you. Oh, and I mean, we are going to hold off then.
Who would you need to kill?
Okay. One, I had to go to the bathroom like in the middle of a session, and I was like in the middle of a row, and I was like,
Oh, yeah. Hi,
So,
excuse me.
you
Let
just
me
gotta-
No, yeah.
well, I came in late. There was like nothing available.
But that's another thing, which is the reason why I came in early, so that.
Yeah, so
that I
you could
strategically select.
That's
where
smart
I'll
of you.
sit. Oh, so you begin at 8:11.
Yeah, we got 25 minutes.
Maybe I'll sit and I'll be back.
Hey, how are you? How'd your session go? It was good. Good.
How do you guys want to do this? Do you want to stay seated or do you want to stand? Almost every session I've been seated, but I have that.
So there aren't 5 chairs. So, and also the HDMI cord is like hooked up to like there. It's like, so as you can see. Yeah. So what I thought is whoever was talking could come up and speak at the podium, and then the person who was finished speaking would go into their place. So I'll start at the podium since I'm going first. But yeah, if we had less people, I'd definitely be like, let's just all sit. And I changed I found your strong, that was missing R. So it should be good.
Yeah, I'll be interested in earlier session.
Oh, how you're looking at things. Yeah. Right. You're like, if you want to know more, just come to this one. Follow-up session. Yeah. Good for you.
If I want to stay on track and stay in my 7 minutes, I need to have because otherwise I'll just.
I just always wing it, to be honest. And then if I try to prepare too much, then it gets bad. Then I get nervous. You could do that too. That's what I'm proposing. We'll see when everyone else gets here if they want to do it differently. But I think otherwise I was like, oh, but then someone's going to stay up there and like press the buttons for people. You know what I mean? And like that just gets awkward. I think you just want it towards you, like, I mean, maybe you can hold it. Yeah, you can hold it. Let's just. Yeah. 7 minutes per person. Yeah. I threw my stuff in the corner back there.
It's already passed through.
Hey, sorry. Oh, please. You're not, babe. It's okay. There's only 3 of us here so far. I know other people, like, sessions are ending up, so. So this is what I was thinking, because there's only 4 chairs, and all the rest of the chairs are for, I mean, I guess we could still one, but the HDMI cord is not very long. So I was thinking whoever is speaking. Yeah, go up on the podium when it's your turn to talk, and then whoever's there will just communicate over the stage. Okay. That sounds good. Okay. Yeah.
I think also, but like.
I actually saw one other day. All those movies that MCN. All like standing temple. I couldn't find it, and it was because that email got sent to my old email, so I like didn't see it until like after we already got back.
We just also have our recordings issue.
So I better with the two that last night backgrounds. That is perfect. What are you guys doing? Are you guys having a birthday
My
party?
family's in town, and we're gonna do a party tomorrow. It's like this happening.
Yeah,
People
well,
working
tomorrow's
Saturday.
That makes total sense. Yeah, I'm gonna go to the, to the museum after this. Like after our sick meeting, I'm gonna do lunch. And go to the museum, and then take the train to the airport. What time are you leaving?
You're later, right?
My flight's at 6:55, so probably could only go like 4:30 or so. You know? So that should be like a couple hours. We are the largest.
I haven't seen.
Burberry is the.
I haven't.
You know, I don't know if she wants to be online. She's like,
Oh,
she
right.
focuses more on like the digital stuff.